Depending on why you buy a Steam Deck, you might end up regretting the decision. I've had this thing for a long time now. I haven't actually done a review of it on the channel, but I think with the renewed interest in the Steam Deck OLED, I think it's time to talk. So, do I regret buying a Steam Deck? No, but I do have some major problems with it, and I do think that if you buy a Steam Deck for certain reasons, there's a very good chance you will be disappointed in your purchase. That being said, I should also mention that if I was going to buy any gaming handheld, any gaming PC handheld, it would absolutely be the Steam Deck. And I'll actually start with that positive right here. The number one reason why the Steam Deck is the only gaming PC handheld that works for me, even though there are more powerful ones out there now, like the ROG Ally, and I'm saying, like, let's say budget is irrelevant, what is the only one I would consider purchasing? It is the Steam Deck, and that is because of the fact that it doesn't use Windows. Have you ever used a Windows laptop, you put it to sleep, you slide it in your bag, you take it out the next day, and it's kind of warm, and the battery life is basically gone? That's because Windows is terrible at sleep and standby settings. They're very inconsistent. And whereas the Steam Deck, I can be in the middle of a game, and let's say I'm playing a game that you can only save at certain locations, right? So I'm using a Steam Deck for the most part when I'm maybe on my lunch break at work, or I'm on the couch for a few minutes while my kids are busy, but they might not need me in a second. Maybe my wife is brushing her teeth before bed, and I'm sitting there and I play 5 minutes of a game, that kind of a thing before. So, like, the point is, I need to be able to hit the button, be in my game, and then hit the button, the game is off, but I didn't actually exit and save the game for my use cases with the Steam Deck. And because the Steam Deck uses Linux, to run the Steam OS is based on Linux, it's not, it doesn't have the problems that Windows does with that sleep and resume feature. Yes, Windows can sometimes work doing that okay, even in the middle of a game, but it's much less consistently successful. And for that reason alone, if that kind of issue, I guess it depends on how you're using this, but like for me, it's absolutely critical. If I had enough time to sit there, reach a save point before turning off my device, I would probably be on my gaming PC, not on a Steam Deck. Anyway, so for me, that's the number one selling point, and the reason why I will not seriously consider any Windows-based gaming PC handheld for my personal use. But let me get into why I think some people would be disappointed and regret purchasing a Steam Deck, and that's, again, what do you want to use it for? When the Steam Deck first launched, a lot of review space and time and buzz was given to the fact for how powerful it was, how it could run pretty much any game on Steam, even the latest, AAA graphically demanding games, sure, at reduced settings. And the thing is, if you're buying the Steam Deck to play AAA graphically demanding recent modern games, I think you will be disappointed even if you can get them up and running. And I'm sure some people are going to be happy with that experience, or maybe just due to budget reasons, a Steam Deck is realistically maybe the only gaming PC that you can seriously consider purchasing, because, it has the screen and controller built in, all for a pretty low price. Like, I get it, but, every time I've tried to play a big, graphically demanding AAA game on my Steam Deck, I have overall been fiddled around with the settings to reach something that is sort of playable, and then not liked the experience and just switched to something else. So that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Now, that being said, I play my Steam Deck a lot, and I absolutely love it. And what the Steam Deck is absolutely awesome at is being a Steam library backlog slayer. So if you've been a PC gamer for a long time like I have, your Steam library probably has dozens or even hundreds, let's not talk about the specifics, of games that you have either never finished or maybe even never started. You might get a really good Steam sale where you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to pick up that game that has good reviews. It's like $3, I'm buying that. And then you just never get around to playing it because you're in the middle of playing something else. And then you've bought 5 other games like that by the time you finish the game you were actually playing. And then some big new game comes out and you play that one. You guys know it, right? Tell me this is relatable. I can't be the only one. So now I've got games in my Steam library that I never got around to. I mean, really good stuff that's older, like Alien Isolation. Believe it or not, I never played the second Portal game, which is an absolute classic. I've played it now on my Steam Deck. Because the thing is, when I'm on my main gaming PC, I don't know if this is just a weird, like, me thing or if this is more relatable, but if you have a high-end gaming PC, it can almost feel like if I'm playing a game that doesn't actually require a good graphics card, I almost feel like I wasted my money on the graphics card. So there's this weird feeling of like wasted potential, even if it's an awesome game. If I was gonna play, a really good game, but it's just not making use of my hardware. Whereas on the Steam Deck, I actually feel like the sense of accomplishment. Wow, I found a game that is a great fit for this hardware and this setup. And so I've been revisiting a lot of classics that I just never got around to when they first came out. And the other thing that it's done is, because I've been in a quest for like what games are really good on the Steam Deck, it's led me down a pathway of finding games that I otherwise would never have really checked out because it's not the type of game that, I've always generally been into like the big budget AAA single player games and some competitive multiplayer, especially when I had more free time and was a bit younger. But the like 2D indie roguelike games, generally just wasn't really my thing. I never took a look at it. But guys, when searching for what to play on my Steam Deck, I found games like Hades. Hades is now one of my favorite games of all time, and it runs beautifully on the Steam Deck. And I can't wait to see what it looks like on the new OLED Steam Deck, because I'm definitely getting one of those. Anyway, so games like Hades, games like Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire was another game I was interested in years ago when it came out, but I bought it on Steam and then just never ended up actually getting around to playing it. On my Steam Deck, that is actually my #1 played game. Slay the Spire is phenomenal. I mean, it might not be everybody's thing, but for me, absolutely love it. Never would have got into it if I didn't have the Steam Deck, and I'm so glad that I did. Other games I spent a ton of time in, Vampire Survivors, and a very similar game, Brotato. These games are super cool, absolutely love them. I only found them because I was searching for games that work great on the Steam Deck. Dave the Diver is another good recent game that works beautifully on a Steam Deck. So yeah, that's the thing, is the Steam Deck is great for playing certain games. Less graphically demanding recent games, especially a lot of these 2D style games that are awesome games, and then the AAA games that it's 3D AAA games it's good at playing might be the older ones from several years ago, where it can run them at a good frame rate. And so if you're buying the Steam Deck for the right reasons, I think it is a really good device and you won't regret it. That being said, I do have some major issues with it. The Steam Deck OLED model is going to improve on some of them. But let's actually talk about that for a second. So the Steam Deck OLED, I don't think it's going to be make it or break it for somebody who would have been disappointed with the Steam Deck. I don't think the OLED model is going to suddenly mean that they would no longer be disappointed with the Steam Deck. But I do think that the Steam Deck OLED model is shoring up a lot of the minor annoyances for someone who it's like, the Steam Deck would already work for you, but like there are these things you wouldn't like. The Steam Deck OLED model is going to shore up so many of those problems. My biggest complaint with the Steam Deck is that the original Steam Deck screen is just kind of bad. Like, yes, you can play games on it, but it's everything I dislike about a cheap LCD monitor. It has a lot of just kind of the dark blacks will actually be a gray glow. The colors do not pop out brightly. It's just honestly just not a very good screen. The OLED screen should completely solve that problem, which is awesome. It'll also go up to 90 hertz, which I don't think you absolutely need, but will be nice to have in like the 2D style games that can actually run it. And there could be some potential latency benefits when you're using frame rate limits at lower frame rates on the higher refresh rate screen. But my other main issue with the Steam Deck is actually one that the OLED model is not going to solve. And that's just the bumper design on the controls. I don't know if I'm just weird about how I use a controller, but well, like if I use an Xbox controller, for example, I'm very easily able to hold my index fingers in a way that like I can hit the triggers and the bumpers, and I can just kind of roll back and hit the bumpers without having to like seriously think about it. I can just very comfortably hit both. I can do the same thing on a PlayStation 5 controller. I can very comfortably just kind of roll my fingers up and hit the bumpers and have control of the triggers. And I just cannot do that comfortably with the layout of the bumpers and the triggers on the Steam Deck. If I'm on the triggers, I cannot very comfortably roll my finger up and hit that bumper in the same way I can on Xbox and PlayStation controllers. And honestly, in most games, that doesn't really matter. If I'm just using the bumpers every now and then, that's fine. But I was trying to play games like Dark Souls 3 recently, where your main attack is the right bumper, and then your strong attack is the right trigger. And it was really uncomfortable to switch between those. And if I try to hold it with like 2 fingers, I find that it's really awkward on the face buttons. And then it makes me kind of grip hard and accidentally press the paddle buttons when I don't want to. So in my opinion, the actual control design, well, I think it's really cool for trying to run normal PC games to have the like touchpads and things like that. That's all awesome, and it's neat to have the gyro aiming when you want it. In general, the right bumpers get used a lot in a lot of games, and I think that they're a very poor design, at least for the way I like to use a controller, for what's comfortable for me. And that's something that the OLED screen isn't going to solve, but that is, I think, my main problem, with the actual just design of the device. Like I said, I think that the OLED screen is going to solve a lot of the other small issues. It should improve on battery life. When you're trying to play 3D games on the original Steam Deck, battery life isn't great. Now, for me, when I'm playing on the Steam Deck, it's usually not for long sessions. It's like 20 minutes before bed, a few minutes on the couch, 20 minutes on my lunch break. So honestly, for me, the battery life has been a non-issue. But the Steam Deck OLED should improve that, and that should help for people who actually would be doing longer play sessions and things like that. So the only other thing I said is that while the Steam OS being Linux-based is my number one thing for like sleep and wake in the middle of games, that's awesome. Being on Linux does have its downsides. And so certain games, if they're not in Steam, they're going to be difficult or impossible to make work. So for example, I think the Steam Deck would be a really cool device for streaming games off of Xbox Game Pass. But the problem is that you can't natively get that running on the Steam OS. And yes, you can install Windows on the Steam Deck, but that's just a big hassle. And like I said, my main pro of the Steam Deck over other similar devices is the Linux build being able to wake and sleep. So like things like that. Right now I'm playing Alan Wake 2. I don't think it would run well on the Steam Deck, but I can't really even try very easily because it's through the Epic Games Store and that's not convenient. Anyway, so there are some little just inconveniences like that would be better on a Windows device, but then like I said, my main issue of the wake and sleep is my main pro to being on the Linux device. Now, my other main thing I've run into that's been frustrating for me is trying to use it as a local streaming device through Steam's Remote Play. So, like I said, when I'm trying to play bigger AAA games, a lot of them I don't want to use on the Steam Deck, but I do have a gaming PC at home. So if I've got that set up and, I've got Steam running in the basement, and maybe I want to play for 20 minutes before bed, so I just want to be like laying in bed playing on the Steam Deck, it would be nice to stream off of my main PC. However, that, when it's working, works really well, and it improves battery life because it's just having to run the stream and not run the game locally. I can run the game at all the super high settings on my main gaming PC and generally run it at 60 frames per second, and the stream works pretty well. The issue I have with it is, I don't know if I'm the only person having this problem. I should probably look into it. But when I want to end the streaming session, I can exit it, but then the Steam Deck doesn't realize it's actually ended properly. And then if I try to restart the streaming session, it won't want to start reliably. Sometimes a full restart on the Steam Deck will solve it. Sometimes I actually have to go to my main gaming PC and end the session. It's kind of annoying. And also, how I said being able to sleep it and wake it back up is a huge deal for me in the way I use the Steam Deck. That doesn't work well, again, while I'm streaming. If I sleep it and then wake it back up, it seems to break the streaming session, at least in the games I've tried this on. I tried to do it on Baldur's Gate 3, which is one of the main games I'm playing right now. Baldur's Gate 3 runs on the Steam Deck, but not well enough for me to really enjoy the experience, especially in Act 3. However, the FSR2 update it got recently helped out a lot. It looks a lot better than FSR1 did at those resolutions, but it's still not great. So I'd rather stream it from my PC. But again, the session would disconnect when I sleep, and then when I try to end the session, it doesn't realize it's ended. I also tried streaming Alan Wake 2, which I'm playing, through putting the Epic Game Launcher into my Steam library as, a non-Steam game, and I can start the game and get it streaming, but like I said, it doesn't end reliably, and then if I want to try to start up the session again, it doesn't work reliably. So that's been a bit of a disappointment, and that's something I hope Valve will improve on over time. And there have been tons of software updates for the Steam Deck that have got significant improvements over time. There's so many really cool features on it, like being able to open up your screen's refresh rate and adjust that on the fly. I wish the Steam Deck had variable refresh rate, and it looks like even the OLED version isn't going to solve that problem, but it is really nice that it has an easy to adjust refresh rate for the monitor and setting a frame rate cap, related to that. That's awesome. So there are some really good features in here. And so overall, do I regret buying the Steam Deck? Absolutely not. I've put tons of hours into it, especially playing games like Slay the Spire and Hades. But I think that some people could regret their Steam Deck purchase if you're buying it to play big, graphically demanding games. Even if you can get them to run, I think the experience is too compromised for me to really recommend it. Although it's kind of nice to have that option if you really want to try it out. I do, if I'm looking at the Steam subreddit, the, Steam Deck subreddit, things like that, and people post what they're playing, sometimes people are saying, hey, I'm playing Cyberpunk on here. And yes, it does run. But again, I feel like that's a pretty compromised experience. So I think if you're buying it to play for the right reasons, to kill your Steam backlog of old games that will run well on it, to place the indie titles, 2D titles, some of which are just absolutely phenomenal games, I think you'll absolutely love it. And I think the OLED version is definitely going to be worth it for that better screen, as well as all of those other little quality of life improvements. And like I said, if you're considering the Steam Deck compared to other devices that are running Windows, seriously think about the sleep to wake functionality in Windows and how you would be using a mobile device like this. Because for me, it's absolutely critical to be able to sleep my game and start it up a day or two later and have it just pop up and be up and running, which has worked like 99.9% of the time flawlessly for me on the Steam Deck, and Windows is just much less consistent about that. Hopefully you guys found my thoughts on the Steam Deck useful and or interesting. Overall, I wasn't really planning on doing a review of this, but I've actually had a lot of people see me with this. Like I said, I do use it on my lunch break at work at times, things like asking me about it, thinking about the Steam Deck OLED, should they get one? So I thought, as somebody who actually has just been using one for a long time, I should probably give my thoughts on it for my viewers, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.